General Cry is one of the easiest bossing builds outside of minions, and my version boasts some of the best clear speed of all General Cry builds that I've seen so far. I chose Shield Crush over Blade Flurry because it's much cheaper, has way better clear, and is much tankier at all budgets. Grabbing a high armor shield is very easy and gives us enough damage to clear with shield charge alone, which I find very fun. I will hold your hand from leveling into the General Cry respec and through budget resolute technique versions, and finally into the promised land of big crit damage. Although I do think personally most people should probably just play the block resolute technique version of my path of building, which has 70 attack block, extra max resistance, 50,000 armor with Molten Shell up, 5.5k life, not bad, but that's with crafted rolls on most pieces, and 8 million or more shaper damage per second, and we also get 1.5 thousand life leech per second from our shield charge alone, which will also do enough damage to provide fortification stacks. In my hand-holding POB, I'll carry you through the leveling, the trees, the skills, and the gear setups until you've made it into red maps and are farming it up with the boys. If you ever need any help with the build, please feel free to ask me in my Discord or on my stream. I know how frustrating it can be to have a league starter that's not performing as well as maybe is advertised or as well as you might want it to. So always reach out on the stream or in Discord. Those are the easiest, mostly on the stream, because if you keep spamming me, I'm going to see it, right? No matter what's happening. And then I could probably just look at your POB and help you figure out what's happening and give you some direction. Now, if I'm helping you, all right, subscribe. Okay, that's all I'm saying. If you're yoinking this, subscribe. Anyway, this all sounds great, but there's one downside. You have to level as Steel Skills, LMAO. If that sounds okay, there's one last warning with this build. You won't be able to truly kind of vibe with it. It won't feel super, super good until you obtain 2 uniques. Now, my POB does include versions and gear sets and tree sets without those 2 uniques, but I do recommend that you obtain them as your very first purchases with the build. Without these 2 uniques, General Cry Shield Crush feels like shit. I wouldn't recommend you to play this build without these 2 uniques. Corpse Walker makes it so you don't have to do some real dumb shit like cycloning, castwell channeling, and desecrating for corpses, and allows us to have very smooth and very fast gameplay. Now, the second unique here, if you don't know what Corpse Walker does, it just lays corpses at your feet. So you don't have to cyclone and do any memes for desecrate or anything, right? When you're walking, it's laying corpses, and General Cry requires a corpse nearby for you to summon the Mirage Warriors. This second unique I'm going to talk about is called Great Old One's Tentacles. It's a pair of gloves that has a 50% chance on enemies you kill for them to reflect their impale damage to nearby enemies. Without these, we won't be able to take advantage of the Impaler, which lets us have Bleed Explosion clear and allows us to very easily shield charge through whole maps, clearing and popping packs as if we were a Bleed Gladiator. You are honestly trolling if you're playing for more than a few days without these uniques, and I consider them mandatory for the build to feel good. Although you can still play without them if you choose to do this in SSF, or maybe the gear is expensive and you're pushing right away, you won't be able to buy them. It'll be fine. You'll just be slower and it won't be as smooth. I have accounted for this though, and without the gloves, you can shield charge and impale recall. It's just the gloves stop you from needing to impale recall, which feels very nice, right? It takes away a button and it makes your clear so much faster. Anyways, I'm super tired. I've been working on this for a few days. The video is coming out at it's going to be like 2 or 3 in the morning US, the day before league start. So I'm just going to go over the core mechanics of the build with more gameplay going in the background. If you don't know how General Cry works already, you summon warriors from corpses, although the summoning does not consume the corpses themselves. General Cry can be one of the highest DPS skills in the game for its budget, and this is because you played on a Berserker, which enables 2 things: damage and anger. Anger specifically being rage. We get huge damage boosts from Warbringer, since General Cry Mirage Warrior attacks count as exerted, and Warbringer gives you 50% more damage with exerted attacks if Warcry has Sacrifice Rage, And the TLDR of Warbringer is it gives you rage when you have less than 25. It takes away rage when you have more than 25. So it's doing this constant balance with itself, constantly giving you that 50% more exerted attack damage, which is for all of our warriors, not just one of them. It's for all of them. Every single one of their attacks is exerted, and they will be exerted all the time because we are constantly war crying and constantly getting and sacrificing rage. So the TLDR is just a 50 more damage boost for General Cry. The other huge portion of Warbringer, like I said, is that it's a rage generator, and we can use this rage to pop a Berserk cooldown while clearing maps for even more speed, more damage, and less damage taken. And we can pop this on bosses as a defensive cooldown and an offensive cooldown because it gives more attack damage as well as having us take less damage, which is very, very nice. We also get 40% more damage for being a Berserker and taking aspect of the Carnage, which is very nice. And that 10% increased damage that we take, I don't really feel it. You won't really feel it. It's such a small thing to worry about with all of the extra armor and block and defensive things that I've added to this build. So our single target is going to be General Cry Shield Crush. But when we're clearing, we're going to use General Cry Shield Charge. So it's a very easy swap with the gem, right? You're going to have a Shield Crush. You're going to have a Shield Charge. You just swap them in, and I would only swap Shield Crush in, which is the attack that sends out little waves that can overlap with your shield. I would swap those in for Conquerors and big bosses. Otherwise, even for map bosses, you'll be fine with just the Shield Charge. Your Shield Charge will do enough damage while you're clearing maps. If you do feel like you do need to do Shield Crush, you just throw it in. Your Shield Charge is going to be clear enough for the map anyways, but with Shield Charge and General Cry, they become these little shield charging missiles, which is pretty fun because you will be shield charging around with the boys, blowing up packs with your Great Old Ones and Impaler combo, which if you don't know what Impaler is, this is how we're going to get all the clear that you're seeing in the video. The Impaler makes it so when you attack and that attack lands and it has enough impale chance where it impales, it also does 4 additional impales, which means every time if you have 100% impale chance, you shield charge into a pack, everything that gets hit will have 5 impales on it. And if you kill any monster in that pack with your shield charge, they will explode, and all 5 of those impales, right, if it succeeds on that Great Old One's 50% chance, they will explode. And this is how you're getting the clear that you see in the video, where these packs are kind of just exploding and evaporating. Really, this combo is super helpful for just clearing up magic and rare packs. And the same thing will happen with your shield charging General Cry warriors as well. So I do prefer to just do shield charge for the majority of it until you're just doing bossing. Then it's shield crush time, and then it's time to pump. But when you do that, you need to take out Impaler, because Impaler is going to sacrifice a lot of your damage. And you'll see that I've taken it out on later versions of the build, because on these versions, I assume you're going to be doing lots of bossing and you'd rather not be keystoning. But that's something to keep in mind. It's a small but important part. Another small and important part of this build is that there are 2 main versions. You will be Resolute Technique for the very start of the build up until you can go into the crit version. Now, Resolute Technique, which I'll refer to as RT from now on, makes it so that your hits can never miss, but you cannot crit. The crit version requires a lot of accuracy and critical strike chance investment, but this crit version can pump the DPS much higher. So the TLDR is that Resolute Technique, RT, is a lot cheaper, can be built tankier, but the crit version pumps a lot more damage. In my POB, I've included templates for how I would build each version, but I consider them a guideline and a set of tools for you to create your own kind of version here. So let's go over the defenses of the build. A lot of the defense we get is going to be block from the tree and fortify, which we will have enough damage on shield charge to get those fortification stacks. We'll have leech from our shield charge as well. This was a sort of breakthrough moment where my only source of recovery wasn't going to be just 4 surging vitalities. You can actually leech with shield charge and you will hit your max leech with this, which does feel very nice. Although we don't have overleech, it still will be very nice when you shield charge into a monster, a pack, or whatever in your maps are bossing, and you'll be able to get 1.5k or more life per second back from just simply shield charging. Now, we do get leech from a large cluster, although there are other sources, from the tree or on gear itself that you can think about using or keep an eye out for. Little things like that can help you just kind of min-max it a little bit. But I've included the leech on a large cluster on an example one. Just really any leech anywhere you can get is going to be good enough because our shield charge does do enough damage. We'll also be running Determination for up to 50,000 armor and huge molten shells, as well as some extra max resistance on the tree. In the block resolute technique, you can run Defy Pain for Defiance charges, which give you 50% more max leech, which is how we get up to 1.5, 1.7k on about 5.5k life. That's huge already in and of itself, but we also get a lot of armor from those Defiance stacks, and that is how we hit that 50k number. Now, it's okay to not run Defiance. I found when I was playing with it, even with a low amount of armor, the max Defiance stacks, when it does reach and you do get that physical damage reflected, I found it wasn't really that much at all. But if it is uncomfortable, and I also found I wasn't really hitting that much, and you shouldn't really with 70% block and whatnot. Although I guess you are still technically getting hit even though you're blocking. That's how that works. The TLDR though is if it feels bad, just take it off, right? Like if it sucks, like you don't have to do it just because I told you to. And that's going to be the general vibe for the build, right? I want you to do whatever feels best for you with this build. I have lots of presets and maybe one feels best for you. So, stick with whatever feels best. If you move on to another one and you like something from a past one, feel free to keep it, right? If you do like the Defiance charges, you can keep them in the crit version, although I've taken them out because crit is supposed to pump damage, in my opinion. But hey, man, if you want the Defiance charges, you can keep them. Otherwise, even in the block RT, if you don't like the Defiance charges, going back to Rite of Ruin, which triples the inherent benefits of Rage, that's another huge one for damage. That'll give you a lot more damage if you were lacking that on the block version. Anyways, just so you guys know, the POB damage isn't real. If you go to the full crit POB, which I've included, it doesn't actually do 240 million damage. You can use full DPS from the skill section as a pretty good estimate, or you can take the combined DPS, divide it by the attack rate of your shield crush, and then again divide that number by the general cry cooldown of about 1.75. And that should give you about your accurate DPS with whatever cooldowns I or you have enabled in Path of Building. But the full DPS gets you close enough. It could be off by like 500,000 to 1 million, but it is a much better representation of the damage than POB's just combined DPS number, because that's assuming your Mirage Warriors are constantly able to attack, which they're not, because they attack once, they go away, and then we wait for the cooldown. So now I'm going to get into the nitty gritty of leveling the build through steel skills, going through the general cry respec and skill swaps and what you'll need for that. Let's quickly go over the leveling. So for leveling, you're going to be a steel skill. If you don't know, steel skills require you to have steel shards. When you have a steel skill on your character, you're going to get an ability, Call of Steel, I think is what it's called. You get a second ability, which you can use, and you'll see your character having shards of steel floating around it. You are going to use these shards to shoot out projectiles with splitting steel and to shoot more stuff out when you get shattering steel. So it's kind of like an attack, and then reload kind of mechanic. This Call of Steel is also going to recall impales, so you can use it to clean up packs as you're running away. And I think that is very cool. So keep it in mind that you will need to recharge. If you're not shooting anything, it's not the ability that sucks. You just don't have your steel shards. So make sure that you are occasionally recharging. You get a max of 12. And when you use it, it will recall impales. And for every impale it recalls, you get another steel shard. So with splitting steel, you get like 12 attacks before you have to recall. Very generous. Later on with shattering, you get 6, which is generous as well. You just have to get used to that playstyle. Anyway, very first step of leveling this build is making a duelist mule and grabbing splitting steel. You'll do this because Marauder doesn't get splitting steel, and you'll need this to level smoothly up until Act 3 library, where you'll then get shattering steel. So splitting steel, chance to bleed, onslaught is going to be your 3-link setup when you can get it, and the vendor recipe is going to be extremely important as we level through this character. The vendor recipe is going to be right here. If you don't do this, if you can't do the vendor recipe or whatever, it's going to be really bad. Your leveling is going to be bad. Your damage is going to be bad. So make sure you do the vendor recipe according to the axe base. You have to do it at every axe base, or it's going to feel bad unless you find a crazy rare axe or sword. So make sure to do this vendor recipe. It's going to be a magic or rare rustic sash vendored with a blacksmith whetstone and one of the axes outlined in the skills section. This is going to give you an axe with a nice physical roll on it for very, very cheap. If you don't do this, leveling is going to feel bad. And keep in mind to do the transmutation resistance craft, which is 1 transmute vendoring an unidentified item can give you transmute shards. So go to your crafting bench and craft transmutation resistance on your gear, right? It'll cost 1 transmute and you'll get 16 to 20 resist on your gear. It's very, very good, and it's how every single player will cap the resistance going into maps. Everybody does this, and you need to if you're not. And that is why your leveling may be rough, is because your resistance is struggled to be capped because you're not taking advantage of a transmutation craft, right? It's crazy. It's so valuable. Anyways, the vendor recipe, Jade Chopper. At level 4, grab Ancestral Protector. It's a totem, link it to maim. What this does is you throw the totem down, it maims, and it'll maim the boss, and you'll only do this on bossing. It'll maim the boss, and the boss will take increased physical damage. So that is very good, and the totem itself gives you attack speed. Next, at level 4, you're going to get War Banner. War Banner makes things take increased physical damage. When you put it down, you gain an insane buff called Adrenaline, which will more than double the damage you deal for a few seconds. So think of it like a DPS cooldown. Put this down on the boss, and you'll get a couple seconds of huge damage. If you're not doing this, you're trolling. Vitality, level 10. It gives you life. That's pretty cool. Makes leveling a lot smoother. Level 4, we're going to use Dash. But we'll replace Dash once we hit Act 2. At level 18, we'll replace Dash with Leap Slam and faster attacks. If you don't know how to use Leap Slam properly, just do these 2 things. I want you to hold spacebar down and constantly Leap Slam. And then I want you to do the same thing, but hold left mouse button. Or I don't want you to do the same thing. I want you to hold left mouse button down and tap Leap Slam. So you're going to notice that when you are running and you do 1 Leap Slam, it's going to be much faster than you doing constant Leap Slams. And that's how you're going to very effectively use Leap Slam. At 16, you're going to get Herald of Ash, which is the cool fire explosion move. So if you have an MTX, make sure to put it on because it always feels cool to do that. Herald of Ash is just going to give you more clear and a tiny amount of damage, which is pretty good. Making sure to do the Wood Splitter vendor recipe in Act 2. And once you hit Act 3, the double axe recipe. When you hit Act 3, check the vendors. They just might have free 4 links for you. And that is super, super good to get as soon as you can. So, splitting steel, chance to bleed, onslaught. If I didn't explain it yet, onslaught makes you move and attack faster. So, you want it because you want to level fast. Once you get a 4 link, though, link life tap so that it's not super annoying on your mana. If you want, and you're a huge gamer, you can just do melee physical damage here if you want to do more damage. But I like life tap as it just makes leveling so much easier. It makes it super free, and then you're not tied to a mana flask and its charges. Once you hit library, do the library quest. It's going to give you Shattering Steel. Shattering Steel is really good. It's going to be the next steel upgrade, and it's going to be the last ability we'll use before General's Cry. It's going to kind of be like Splitting Steel, and that it's consuming steel charges and kind of shoots a projectile. But this does a cone, and it does a lot more damage. So it's very, very good to use. Also, as your reward, make sure you take Impale from doing the library quest so that you can link that to this. And your Impale damage is going to help out a lot with Shattering Steel. It's going to make it very, very smooth to clear, and it's going to make it good damage on bosses. Onslaught again, and then Life Tap again, although these can be removed and replaced for more damage links if you prefer. At level 24, you're going to self-cast Vulnerability, which is a curse that makes enemies take increased phys damage. Act 4, Act 5, do the Shadow Axe vendor recipe. And once you get Call to Arms, which is the keystone that makes your war cries instant, I want you to use Enduring Cry and Increased Duration so that you can generate endurance charges and that you can get a little bit of a life boost. There will be no more gems after this point unless you want to do Cast No Damage Taken links in Act 6 for Molten Shell or for Immortal Call, or if you want to buy anything else that you feel is necessary to make your leveling a little bit smoother, feel free. But up until Act 8 and 9, you're just going to be doing vendor recipes for Labris, which is another huge upgrade, and then finally Karui Chopper if you get the point. But if you get to that point, before you hit Act 9 or 10, you need to prepare for the General Cry respec and the General Cry regearing and gem swapping. So we level as steel skills and then respec in a General Cry around Act 9 or Act 10. This requires 4 things. You need a 600 plus armor shield. You need to pick up girded shield bases, which are the same exact base type as Colossal, but have a little bit less base armor. But if you do find Colossal, those work as well. But girded shield base, it's very long, very silvery, and looks cool. Use your crappy essences on them until you hit any armor mod with an open prefix or until you hit high armor. So you can hit flat armor and craft % if there's an open prefix, or you can hit % armor on your essence and then craft flat. Any of those will work, and I recommend 600 plus armor, which is extremely obtainable. As the girded base, I believe, gives like 500. So literally almost any armor rolls on there is what I recommend. You'll also need 2 green, 1 blue. This needs to be a 3-link. The easiest place is going to be a weapon, as weapons can be 2 green, 1 blue, and a 3-link very, very early on. So if you do find one, for example, on an axe or a sword base, feel free to keep it because you'll need it for Cyclone, Cast While Channeling, and Desecrate. We do need to do this until you obtain the Corpse Walker boots. So as bad as it is, and as bad as it may feel, you have to do it until you obtain the boots that lay corpses on the ground for you. You have to do this weird kind of crappy little mechanic where you're cycloning and your cycloning casts Desecrate on the ground for you, wherever your pointer is. I don't like this too much, although it's really not that bad, right? At that point, you're just playing a Cyclone build, but I much prefer the Corpse Walker boots, so make sure you can pick those up as soon as you can. You'll also need 3 red, 1 green for Shield Crush, Impale, Pulverize, and General Cry. This is your main damage setup. 3 red, 1 green. 3 red, 1 green. You'll also want to have a shield charge setup if the links allow it. At a minimum, shield charge and impale support and life tap. So that would be 2 red and 1 green. If you can fit it on there, a fortify support, as you will still be able to get fortification stacks from shield charge. Lastly, you'll need 12 to 13 respec points. Now, you get 12 from doing all the quests that give passive skill points. So this is free, but you need to make sure you follow the tree to a T, or you will not have enough. If you take any attributes, right, like if you took too much dexterity levels on Impale or something, you swap something out and now you need dex, you have to keep that in mind. You'll have to use a regret later. But you do get 12 free regrets or respec points from doing all of the quests that give passive skills. If you need more, you can do all of the other respec quests like Dirty Job, or you could just use your regrets or leave it until later, as it's really not that big of a deal. Anyway, your respec kind of setup here for auras is going to be Dread Banner, Vitality, Pride, and Berserk. Dread Banner gives you 20% Impale chance and effective Impale, which is very good. Vitality can give some life regen, and Pride. Now, if you want, you can drop Vitality and pick up a Blood and Sand or Herald of Purity for a lot more damage. But if you like the Vitality life regen, for now it's okay, as you really don't need that much damage going into maps. Again, your Cyclone setup until Corpse Walker boots is Cyclone, Cast While Channeling, Desecrate. Then, in your body armor, General Cry, Shield Crush, Impale, Pulverize, Shattering Steel, you will still want to recall Impales. You will not use Shattering Steel, but you will use the Call of Steel ability that it provides to recall Impales that you will cause with your Shield Charge or with your Shield Crush setup. So that can provide some extra clear. And it's very important that you still keep this ability and still self-cast Vulnerability until we get a Vul non-hit ring later on. Your new Ancestral Totem will be Ancestral War Chief, not Protector, because Protector gives attack speed, but General Cry doesn't need attack speed. They only get 1 attack, so we need the more melee damage. You'll link Maim and Culling Strike. Culling Strike instantly kills things that are below 10% life, so that's pretty much just a 10% damage boost. Shield Charge, Life Tap, Impale, and Fortify are going to be what you want for a Shield Charge setup to make it very easy and very smooth to impale a lot of enemies and then recall those impales for your clear and to obtain Fortify and a nice little movement buff. But that is the leveling section. But anyways, thanks for watching this long. I'll see you guys on the stream. Appreciate it. All right, bye. Have a good league start.